Do you believe in happy endings? Are some things just meant to be? Because this trade involving this player and these teams feels inevitable, and by the end of the video, I bet you'll agree with me. For a player who's received so much criticism for always having the greatest supporting cast, Kevin Durant has actually always been alone. For all the accolades, awards and accomplishments, he's never been respected. Yes, that's mostly because he joined a 73-win team who just humiliated his team in the Western Conference Finals, but another reason for that is because he doesn't have a home in the NBA, nor a fan base who loves and supports him unconditionally. In OKC, he's the greatest player to ever wear the jersey, but he's a traitor who turned his back on his team. In Golden State, despite his success, he's the adopted stepchild, the black sheep of the family who was never loved and appreciated like the homegrown players. In Brooklyn, he was a great player, had his moments, but ultimately fell short of expectations and didn't accomplish anything of real significance. Likewise in Phoenix, championship expectations, second round exit and a first round sweep. Because of all this, there's a big debate as to whether or not Kevin Durant's jersey will be retired by any of the 4 teams he's played for. And it's crazy, because why does a top 15 player in the history of basketball have to convince us why teams should retire his jersey? Because KD has to do his own PR, because nobody will give him his flowers on his behalf. He lost all his fans from OKC, and the fans he gained from going to Golden State, they prefer Curry. So now that he's no longer on the team, they actually downplay what Durant did for them in order to uplift Steph Curry. No NBA team claims Kevin Durant as one of their own. Magic and Kobe were Lakers. Bill Russell, Larry Bird were Celtics. Jordan was a Bull. Duncan was a Spur. Curry's a Warrior. We usually associate the greatest players in history with one franchise. LeBron James is obviously an exception to that rule. He's played for 3 NBA teams, but despite being arguably the greatest player in NBA history, he faces the same problem. People debate whether or not his jersey should be retired in Miami, and even more so in LA. But the difference between Kevin Durant and LeBron James is no matter where LeBron goes, he can always call Cleveland his home. That was not always the case. He was the hometown hero that went to zero. People are quick to forget there was also a time when LeBron James was the villain, when his jersey was burned and fans discredited his titles for joining the Big 3 in Miami. In the end, all was forgiven. Why? Because he came back and delivered a championship, the first and only in franchise history. They said he couldn't win without Bosh, couldn't win without Wade, and then in 2016, he did it. LeBron left on bad terms, returned and got his happy ending. As for Kevin Durant, he's still yet to conquer his final peak. But just maybe, the stars have aligned for him to complete his ultimate redemption arc. It's safe to say that Kevin Durant's legacy has been tarnished since leaving Golden State. His time in Brooklyn was a waste and things weren't much better in Phoenix. Matter of fact, it was worse. The Suns had a championship foundation, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, 2 of the NBA's best scorers, and in the off-season, instead of strengthening their bench and adding a few missing pieces to complement their stars, they gut the entire roster, trade their entire bench for Bradley Beal. I don't think anyone saw this move and thought they're gonna win a championship. The fit never made sense. You've got 3 guys that average 30, 1 basketball, 2 ball-dominant score-first shooting guards, neither of whom play the point guard, and you surrounded those 3 guys with whoever you could find. Eric Gordon, Isaiah Thomas, Ball. The Suns are by far the most top-heavy team in the NBA. They took a risk, traded all their draft capital and every asset of value to put together this big 3, all to get swept in the first round of the playoffs. It's not like they got close and can run it back next year. This didn't work, and right now there is no NBA franchise in a worse situation than the Suns. The owner, general manager, whoever it is, saying 26 of 29 other NBA teams would swap rosters with them, he's delusional. They have no flexibility whatsoever to improve this roster, and they owe over $500 million in salary to a big 3 that can't win a playoff game. Bradley Beal is untradeable. They are stuck paying him $160 million over the next 3 years. And even if a team was stupid enough to take on that contract, Bradley Beal would have to approve because he's got a no trade clause. Bradley Beal is 31 years old. Whether it's in Denver or Charlotte, his bag's secured. So he's only approving of a trade that sends him to another contender, because if he wanted to stat pad on a bad team, he'd have never left the Wizards. No contending NBA team is making a blockbuster move for Bradley Beal. So what are the options? Usually what NBA teams do to encourage other teams to take on a bad contract is incentivize them with draft capital. But the Suns can't do that because they traded all their picks to get Bradley Beal and to get Kevin Durant. The Phoenix Suns own none of their draft picks, first or second round, for the next 8 years. In 2031, Kevin Durant will be 42 years old. The Suns have no long-term asset of any value for basically the next decade other than Devin Booker. They have no choice but to pull the plug this summer and blow this team up, or risk being the worst NBA team for the next decade. Because how can you rebuild your team with no draft picks to draft young players? They'll be stuck in this endless cycle of having the worst record and not being able to acquire any young talent at the top of the draft. The Suns will become the first G League team in NBA history. They could even end up losing their franchise because fans will stop turning out and supporting their team. This is a PR nightmare. Within hours of elimination, everything came out. The coach is getting fired, Kevin Durant is unhappy with his role, and apparently Devin Booker wants to be a Knick. That's the word on the street. The ship is sinking in Arizona and the stars wanting out is inevitable. There is no way, barring a miracle Beal trade, that Booker and Durant are both on this team next season. Unless they're the most stupid organization of all time, which they probably actually are. Because if you trade Devin Booker, then what are you going to do with Kevin Durant? Build around him for the future? Obviously not. If Booker goes, Durant goes, and if Durant goes, Booker probably wants out too. Now, of those two players, Devin Booker is obviously the more valuable asset. He's 27 years old, in his prime. You're not in a rush to trade him. Let him inflate his stats until the deadline on a bad team and try get as much as possible in return. But Kevin Durant is 36 with an injury history. His decline in the coming years is inevitable. So the longer you wait to move him, the less desirable he becomes. Let's not forget, the Suns gave up Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, 4 first-round picks and a pick swap to get him in 2023. Not even 18 months later, and they'll be lucky to get half of that, which is why the Suns urgently have to trade Kevin Durant and recoup as much value as possible while they can, because the longer they wait, the less they're gonna get. Kevin Durant isn't stupid either. He knows his championship window is closing, and he isn't gonna want to waste the final few precious years of his prime playing for nothing. It makes sense for both parties to part ways as soon as possible. So the question now is, who's gonna trade for Kevin Durant? Unfortunately for KD, he doesn't have much leverage. He doesn't have a no-trade clause and he has another 2 years left on his contract. So that makes any team a possibility, because the Suns are well within their right to accept the best offer. This isn't a Dame Portland-like situation where they owe Durant the respect of sending him to a preferred destination. KD's only been there a year. Send him to Detroit if you have to. But luckily for KD, I don't see any reason why the rebuilding teams would make a move for him, because what's the point? In 2024 and beyond, Kevin Durant iso ball is not going to win you a championship. At this stage of his career, he's not a number one option on a contending team. And this hooper isolation buddy ball that KD loves to play, with guys like Kyrie and Devin Booker taking turns showing off how deep their bags are, that's not gonna work. Kevin Durant may have you fooled, but he ain't fooling me. Yes, he's averaging as many points per game as he did in his prime, but how he goes about getting those points are completely different. KD doesn't have the same burst he used to get to the rack. And I don't know if you've noticed, but KD doesn't take threes anymore. In this playoff series against the Timberwolves, KD made just 5 3-pointers and only attempted 12. For comparison, Anthony Edwards took 13 threes in Game 4. That's more than KD did in the entire series. Just 17.9% of Durant's shot attempts were from the perimeter. What is going on? Compare this to the 2017 NBA Finals against the Cavs, when 35.2% of Durant's shot attempts were 3-pointers. In 2021 against the Bucks, his best series since his Achilles injury, still 29% of Durant's shot attempts were 3-pointers. So how did Kevin Durant go from 8.4 3-point attempts per 100 possessions in Golden State to 3.7 per 100 with the Suns? Because Kevin Durant in 2024 is not the same Kevin Durant. Take a look at his shot chart from 2016-17 and look at it today. Less layups, less threes, and more mid-range jumpers. Every NBA stat nerd will tell you the mid-range shot is the least efficient shot in basketball, because mathematically per 100 possessions it's gonna total the least amount of points. I understand Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are elite mid-range scorers, but they aren't an exception. In Game 4 against the Timberwolves, Durant and Booker combined for 82 points on 65% shooting and they still lost the game. You are not winning 4 of 7 games in the NBA playoffs playing like that. This year, they couldn't even win once. Which makes me come to the shocking conclusion that Kevin Durant, who possesses possibly the most versatile scoring skill set of all time, is actually at this point of his career a one-dimensional scorer. He's a master in the mid-range, and because of that he's still able to average his 27 a game, and it's still an efficient 27. He's shooting 52% from the field and 41% from 3, but it's not as effective, and the numbers cover up the fact that Kevin Durant isn't scoring like he used to. Let's compare current Kevin Durant to prime Kevin Durant. Here are his scoring stats and splits in Golden State, and here are those stats with the Phoenix Suns. Do you honestly believe that Kevin Durant, post Achilles at 36 years old, is a better, more efficient scorer than the Kevin Durant that was so good in Golden State he guaranteed a championship? Your eyes do not deceive you. He isn't that guy, and I've came to realize when you build a system around Kevin Durant, it's pick up basketball. No strategy, no structure, just hoopers hooping. It doesn't matter if it's Russell Westbrook, Kyrie Irving, James Harden or Devin Booker. Playing like that does not win in the NBA. But just because Kevin Durant isn't going to be the number 1 guy on a winning team, doesn't mean he can't be the best player on a team. At the time, the consensus was Kevin Durant was the best player in Golden State, but Steph Curry was the system that enabled him to become that. It would be interesting to see things go full circle and Kevin Durant return to Golden State, because any Warriors fan that said they didn't need KD in the past, I bet every single one of them would take Durant back in a heartbeat, because while KD got embarrassed in the playoffs, at least he got there. But Kevin Durant to Golden State isn't going to happen, one, because the Warriors have nothing the Suns would actually want, and the whole reason Kevin Durant left in the first place was because he wanted to win without Curry. If he voluntarily left a dynasty and left guaranteed championships on the table, he's not going to go back now and try to win a title when those same guys are older and washed up. Seriously though, what is a rebuilding team going to do with Andrew Wiggins? What use is Jonathan Kuminga or Moses Moody if you don't have draft picks to surround them with young talent? When the Suns trade Kevin Durant, they're not looking for players. They are one Devin Booker trade request away from entering a rebuild, so what they really need is draft picks. And that brings us back to square one. What NBA team has the most draft capital? It's the Oklahoma City Thunder, and if the Phoenix Suns are smart, they will take notes from this organization. Because 5 years ago the Thunder were in a similar boat. They tried a big three, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, and after 2 disappointing playoff exits, they could have wasted their time, ran it back, but they realized they weren't going to win, and it would be a waste of time. So they traded everyone and stockpiled draft picks. Between 2020 and 2026, the Thunder had 15 first round picks. They used these picks to build the best young core in the NBA. The Thunder's average age is 23 years old, they are already a contender and the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. The blueprint is there for the Suns to copy and paste. You trade Durant first, then trade Devin Booker, and then hopefully when the team sucks, Bradley Beal will want out, waive his no trade clause, and you can get him gone too. I'll say it again, the only thing the Suns should be looking for in return is draft picks, and if they happen to land a young SGA while doing so, then that's just a bonus. Now I know you're probably wondering why I'm so certain it's going to be the Thunder. Just logically speaking, considering of 30 NBA teams, the Suns have the least amount of picks. It would make sense for them to do business with the team that has what they want, and that's the OKC Thunder. From now in 2025, they have 7 first round picks, and a total of 37 draft picks in the next 7 years. 15 of those are first rounders. To put into perspective just how many picks the Thunder have, the New York Knicks have the second most draft capital of any NBA team, who have 20 picks in the next 7 years. The Thunder have almost double that. Now I understand why OKC fans want to keep their picks. Sam Presti is the best drafter in the NBA. He drafted 3 MVPs in the 2000s and he's done it again through the draft now. But there are only 15 roster spots available on an NBA team. Only 8 to 10 guys actually get to play on the court, and the guys they have right now are pretty good, which means the Thunder don't need 37 draft picks in the next 7 years. They have an MVP caliber player in SGA. Chet Holmgren as a rookie is already one of the NBA's best centers, and Jalen Williams is a future all-star. Heck, Lou Dort might be the best 3-and-D wing in the NBA right now. Josh Giddey, Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe are really good young players who'd be even better if given more opportunity. Every single player I just mentioned is 25 or younger. The OKC Thunder have positioned themselves to compete for championships in the future. That's not going to change. As long as they have this core of Shea, Chet and J-Dubs, they're good for the next decade. But NBA teams are always looking for ways to get better. And although the Thunder's championship window is going to be open for a very long time, it is open right now. And as good as the Thunder are, they lack experience and have no battle-tested veterans. That's why they traded for Gordon Hayward at the trade deadline. The idea was to add a playoff-proven 3-level scoring forward, capable of creating offense with and without the ball. That trade hasn't worked out as planned. It was worth the gamble. They only gave up on guys who weren't a part of the rotation anyways, but in 29 games, Hayward averaged 5.3 points per game in OKC, and in OKC's first round sweep against the Pelicans, Hayward played 31 minutes and scored 0 points. Clearly he wasn't doing what they brought him in to do, that's why he barely played, which means the void hasn't been filled, and going into the off-season, the Thunder will be looking to address that. They're still looking for an experienced 3-level scoring forward, and conveniently, probably the greatest 3-level scoring forward of all time is going to be available. The trade between OKC and Phoenix is pretty straightforward. Making the deal work will be a little complicated because most of the Thunder players are on rookie contracts, and if I'm OKC, I've got 3.5 untouchables. Shea, J-Will and Chet are going nowhere, and I'd do everything possible to keep Lou Dort. The players I'd expect to be included: Josh Giddey, Isaiah Joe, obviously Gordon Hayward as part of the signing trade to make the salaries work. He'll be fine with that. He proved when he left Boston for Charlotte that he's only in the NBA for a bag. And to make the trade a bit more appealing, I'd let the Suns pick whichever of the young guys they want, whether it's Cason Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, whoever. Yes, it'll be sad to see some of these guys part ways, but I'd have enough faith in Sam Presti replacing these guys via the draft. I don't know which of the Suns' minimum guys would be included, but I'd expect whoever is included in the deal, whether it's Bol or Damian Lee, to be cut by the Thunder immediately. I think OKC would be willing to give up 4 first-rounders, 5 possibly, just because they can afford to do so. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot for Kevin Durant, but for the Suns it's all about the picks. They don't have much leverage. KD is a depreciating asset, and the only teams that would give up 4 or more firsts to get him are the teams that feel like they are one piece away from winning a championship. Teams that it's now or never for. Like the Clippers, they'd be a team that would potentially do this, but they already did it for PG and Kawhi, so they don't have the picks. Funnily enough, OKC have their picks. The Lakers would probably be dumb enough to make a move like this, but with LeBron on the verge of retirement and AD's health history, trading away their draft picks with a rebuild on the horizon would set the franchise back a decade. Milwaukee's another team. With Giannis and Dame, they're trying to win now. It's possible, but I can't see it. Boston are not going to break it up. Denver, no. Miami, no. The Knicks, maybe. They do have the draft capital, but if they were to do a deal with the Suns, I think they'd be more interested in Devin Booker and pairing him alongside Jalen Brunson in the backcourt instead of getting KD. I think what NBA teams are realizing is the Big Three era is done. The most competitive teams today have squads, deep rosters with solid role players built around the star. This idea that you need multiple superstars to win in the NBA is outdated. Jokic is the only all-star on Denver. Shea is the only all-star in OKC, Brunson in New York, Tyrese in Indiana. All of these teams are in the second round, whereas the teams with the superstars, Bucks, Clippers, Lakers, Suns, they're the ones in Cancun. None of these contending teams are gonna gut their roster and mortgage their future to get Kevin Durant. It's too big a risk. But for the Thunder it isn't a risk at all, because they could give up 4 first-round picks and they'd still have more first-round picks than any other team for the next decade. And let me tell you something, if the OKC Thunder get Kevin Durant, they would be the clear-cut favourites to win the championship. Check out this potential lineup. Point guard, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. 2 guard, Lou Dort. Small forward, Jalen Williams. Power forward, Kevin Durant. Center, Chet Holmgren. That lineup is scary. You have the perfect combination of youth, experience, scoring, defense, size, length, versatility. The more I think about it, it's a match made in heaven. But the most important thing in order for this to work is that OKC don't lose their identity. Kevin Durant is not the system, he's the final piece of the puzzle. You don't build the team around Kevin Durant, you build the team and Kevin Durant is the icing on the cake. When KD plays within an established system, like he did in Golden State, he is the best player in the world. You don't need to cater to his needs, because he wants to play rec league ball in the NBA, that's who he is, he's a hooper's hooper. When you have a system like the Warriors did, motion offense built around Steph Curry, and you incorporate Kevin Durant within that, you get 35 points per game in the finals. Another thing that doesn't get talked about enough is Kevin Durant is the most successful player in the history of USA basketball. He's the all-time leading scorer. USA haven't won gold in 2 of their last 3 major international tournaments, but the time they did win was when Kevin Durant was playing. If Kevin Durant is traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder and they win the championship, it will not be looked at like it was in Golden State. If Kevin Durant returns to OKC, he will have the same opportunity LeBron did to make amends. Durant spent 9 years with the Thunder. When he retires, that's the team he should be associated with. 8 years have passed since he broke their hearts, but best believe all will be forgotten if KD can help deliver the first championship in franchise history. The truth is, Kevin Durant needs to win a championship out with Golden State to cement his legacy. The same way Kobe needed to win without Shaq. LeBron had to bring one home to Cleveland, and Curry needed to win his finals MVP. Kevin Durant needs that 3rd title, and even if you remove all sentimental value and the romance that comes with his return, the OKC Thunder, the best fit and best situation for Kevin Durant to play basketball going forward. Some will say the writing's already on the wall, and I'll end the video with this. Chet Holmgren just starred in a new Nike commercial. Guess who narrated the advert?
You think you could do it? I'm not just talking ball. You think you could put the whole city on your shoulders? Well, step up then.
Now that you've watched the whole video, let me know what you think. Is Kevin Durant returning to OKC, or is this just too good to be true? Share your thoughts and feedback down below in the comments, and on that note, it's DKM signing out. Until next time, and peace.